Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is John, and we've got some really difficult news to cover involving a lot of really graphic allegations involving the popular shock rock veteran Marilyn Manson, so please take this as a warning now. If maybe you're not in a good headspace to see these discussions, here's your chance to click away. So by now, you've probably already heard that Marilyn Manson has finally been named as the alleged abuser of Evan Rachel Wood, Manson's ex-fiancée back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, when she was in her teens and early 20s, and he was in his late 30s. Multiple other women unleashed similar statements on social media on February 1st, 2021, and the reason why I said finally is due to Wood testifying in court multiple times throughout the years about some unnamed abuser who she is now publicly alleging to be Marilyn Manson. There is no easy way to talk about this topic, but before I break down the gates, let me start by pointing you directly to the sources. I'm gonna link an article in the description down below that details all of the individual abuse allegations against Manson, as well as a video by the YouTuber Edwin Generation that came out a few months ago that did a really good job at summarizing the mounting evidence, as well as detailing this pattern of behavior that's pretty deeply disturbing and problematic. The art and the artist have always been a blurred line with Manson, and objectively, I think most of his fans would admit that. There's the rock and metal band Marilyn Manson, and then there's the personality Marilyn Manson, the frontman whose real life name is Brian Warner. Shock rock literally embodies everything he's tried to be since his massive breakthrough in the 90s, from the live shows, the interviews, the photo shoots, and the music videos. The guy was a hell of a marketer, and he sold the world on this deeply unhinged, unsettling monster of a person who may have actually just been putting up an act, or maybe he was actually just as fucked up as his lyrics and his image would have implied. Regardless of how you feel about internet justice in the modern age, you have to acknowledge and admit that Manson's case isn't at all like the normal stories that pop up with maybe an unverified Reddit post or a random Twitter user throwing out accusations. That's not me saying don't look into those types of allegations, more so just a reminder to use your own discretion and judgment and try to do the research to see if maybe something does or doesn't add up, because unfortunately for some, guilty until proven innocent seems to be the way that our world is moving forward. Manson is different though, way different, and I want to say it now before we go any further. I believe these women, and I truly believe that they suffered years of mental, physical, and maybe even spiritual or other forms of abuse that I can't even comprehend at the hands of Brian Warner. These are women with documented relationships with the musician, not just some crazed fans or attention seekers, as his fans or even Manson himself has tried to put it in past interviews. I missed out on the 90s Manson boom outside of hearing some of the passing rumors about this satanic guy that removed one of his ribs, that's out there ruining children's minds and brainwashing the industry. I just wasn't allowed to listen to stuff like that, and it wasn't until the 2005 game Midnight Club 3 I was playing that, I heard Rock is Dead on the soundtrack, and that was the first time that I even remotely knew who Marilyn Manson was. I started seeing some of the music videos on the channel Fuse later that same year, and I was kind of put off by the look, and I honestly didn't check out too much of his stuff until way later in high school. Let's not make this about me though. I just wanted to give you some clarity, some backstory, so that you know how I've felt in the past, at least about the music. I've never actually owned any of the band's albums or anything, despite actually liking a decent handful of them, but there's even more that I feel are unbelievably bloated or else pretentious. And now it's all adding up for me to see that this man is a full-blown abusive narcissist who uses those around him as both weapons and shields for his abhorrent obsessions and ego. People, including me, have often overlooked his seemingly insane interviews and statements about cutting himself, associating with gangs, or even openly all but admitting how awful he was to his romantic partners. And we've overlooked them because it all circles back to what I said earlier about the whole shock rocker thing. He's trying to get a reaction. He's saying something violent to try and stir us up. He's stirring the pot. He's fishing for responses. It's probably not real. At least that's what you think to yourself. But with these new, very detailed allegations finally coming to the light, I genuinely don't see how you can shock your way out or else explain away any of this. His former partner, Evan Rachel Wood, detailed some pretty horrific scenes when she testified in a California court in support of extending the statute of limitations when it comes to domestic abuse cases. The statute of limitations is, of course, the amount of time you have to report a case to law enforcement before it's no longer admissible in court, and for victims and survivors of abuse, it's harder for them to come forward very often out of fear for their own lives, quite possibly, like in Woods' very own case, where she alleges that Manson consistently threatened to kill himself, to kill her, to even blackmail her just to keep her silent. On Instagram, she wrote, "The name of my abuser is Brian Warner, also known to the world as Marilyn Manson. He started grooming me when I was a teenager and horrifically abused me for years. I was brainwashed and manipulated into submission. I am done living in fear of retaliation, slander, or blackmail. I am here to expose this dangerous man and call out the many industries that have enabled him before he ruins any more lives. I stand with the many victims who will no longer be silent." In response, Manson was almost immediately dropped by his record label Loma Vista Recordings, who said in a statement, "In light of today's disturbing allegations by Evan Rachel Wood and other women naming Marilyn Manson as their abuser, Loma Vista will cease to further promote his current album effective immediately. Due to these concerning developments, we have also decided not to work with Marilyn Manson on any future projects." I was surprised to see that he actually did respond, considering he's repeatedly dodged the question or even hung up on interviewers when Evan Rachel Wood's name is even mentioned, but I think 5 women accusing you of horrible abuse crimes is probably enough to make anybody cough up a statement on social media. Manson simply stated, "Obviously, my art and my life have long since been magnets for controversy, but these recent claims about me are horrible distortions of reality. My intimate relationships have always been entirely consensual with like-minded partners. Regardless of how and why others are now choosing to misrepresent the past, that is the truth." The implication he's making here is that all of the things Wood and the other women have alleged, including torture, sleep deprivation, forcing drugs on them, starvation, rape, and verbal threats to kill them, apparently that was some sort of sick, twisted roleplay that they consented to because they were in a relationship with him? Manson has always known what he wants, what he desires, and has sought out those things ravenously, whether that be drugs, violence, or women. It's kinda sad to see how delusional some of his fans are being about this, as they explain away or stretch the outer limits of some sort of possible truth to try and make sense of things because it's easier for them than accepting the reality that someone who meant a ton to them, meant the fucking world to them, they might just be a fucking abusive monster that's been out of control and getting worse instead of better since they found fame. Most of y'all watching know me and know that I advocate for investigating these often needlessly messy and very public allegation scenarios, but I've also said many times that if it's right in front of our fucking eyes, who am I to deny the apparent reality instead of trying to further warp it in some sort of desperate attempt to make myself or make you guys watching feel better? Brian Warner strikes me as a man who feels so small internally that he has to make others feel that way too. A history of breaking women down and molding them to exactly what he wants them to be qualifies as abuse, as do the other more obvious allegations. Glancing back through old interviews, that just reminds me of how highly he thinks of himself, his art, his process, and his image. I mean, confidence is one thing, but Manson radiates big baby energy, a man who cannot accept anything other than the fact that he's a god among men, and things don't exactly go so well for people who tell him that he's not walking on water 24/7. Please don't victim shame in the comments. There is no tolerance for that here at all. And to some of you that naively think that someone as accomplished as Evan Rachel Wood, an acclaimed actress, would be doing this for fame, I mean, what the fuck is wrong with you? How does that make any sense? Rewind the video to what I said about trying to connect the dots and somehow making sense of something that you don't want to believe. Obviously, time will tell, and I do hope that we get to hear more, but for now, it's honestly maddening to see the lengths that some people will go to when they just really don't want to stare reality down the barrel. Thank you for watching my breakdown of the Marilyn Manson abuse saga. I know some people are going to call me a hypocrite for this one, and that's fine, I guess. I just want to put it out there that it's not like I've ever pretended in the past, like the musicians or bands that I've said I can separate the art from the artist for were just like amazing people and that I somehow knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that they were. That's not at all true. In fact, my official position is that you shouldn't idolize any celebrity because you're only going to be let down when you find out that maybe they're not exactly a good person. Sadly, this is an extreme case and not everything would normally have this much information available, but again, I'm going to point you guys to the links down below. Please go check those out and read up on things yourself so that you can be fully informed even outside of my opinions. There's a few links here on screen that you can check out if you want to. I really don't know how to end this one, but I'm glad that these women came forward. I'll follow this case closely, and I'll see you soon on Beyond ARTV.